Hey there, Changemaker. Welcome to the Dare to Begin Small and Mighty podcast, episode number 45. Today, we're going to talk about expectations, not the expectations that you have to set for your clients, but the expectations that you are setting on yourself and how comparison can be helpful, but most of the time is really detrimental. Today's a really good episode. We get right into the thick of it, so let's get right into it. I spent years building my interior design business trying to do all the things: the marketing, the networking, the free content, spending thousands of dollars on training and education, only to see minimal growth. After years of frustration, I finally started to ask, what am I missing? I had the systems in place for powerful growth. I had amazing clients. I had determination, drive, and commitment to spare. And yet, I wasn't seeing the success I desired. What if business is not about the doing? What if building a powerful business requires both powerful systems and something else, something deeper? I'm Amy Van Meel, and I'm on a journey to discover that something else. If you are ready to build a powerful business and do it knowing that your success is inevitable, join me as I share both the powerful systems I know work and my lessons and revelations as I discover that something deeper. Welcome, Changemaker, to the Dare to Begin Small and Mighty podcast. Hey, Changemakers, thanks so much for joining me today. I wanted to say this morning, but it could be evening where you are. So, hey, thanks for sitting down with me. Amy here. I am pumped that you're here. I'm always pumped that you're here. I'm always excited to just to know that as I sit down to record this, that in a few days when the episode actually goes out, that you are sitting there listening or driving or walking or running or whatever it is you're doing. So thanks for tuning in. So I'm going to jump right into today's episode. I want to talk about expectations. So we've talked about managing your clients' expectations in the past and how that is one of your number one responsibilities when it comes to your business, when it comes to your actual client work, is to properly manage your customers' expectations, your clients' expectations, because we want to obviously aim to do the best that we can, but we can't do everything, right? So managing expectations is super important. So I've shared in the last few episodes that I started a new job, and this new job has been a challenge for me in a lot of ways. There's been a steep learning curve. I know a few of my colleagues are tuning in, so if that's you, hey guys, thanks so much for listening. And so what I want to talk about today is expectations that we set on ourselves. Because here's what I found. So the job that I just started had about 6 weeks of training and mentoring to get ready to go. And I didn't really understand how in depth this job was going to be. I didn't understand how much it was going to require of me, especially at the beginning. Like the volume of information that I have taken in since the beginning of October is a bit staggering, actually. And so here's what happened. So 4 weeks of training is just mostly consuming a ton of information and getting to know the business and the organization structure and like who we go to for what. And then the last 2 weeks is mentoring, where we're actually getting ready to move into our roles full time. And it was in mentoring that I noticed that all of a sudden I began to feel incredibly overwhelmed. And we were 2 days from finishing mentoring. So in the last 2 days, I was beside myself. I wasn't nervous about moving into the role full time. I wasn't concerned about that. What I was beside myself on was the sheer volume of what we were doing. And I realized that throughout the training and throughout the mentoring, I had been watching other people and feeling like they were really crushing it. And like I was not doing a good job. I wasn't keeping up. I was just like, I was drowning in what I needed to do. And it was the last day of mentoring was moving into like the live part of my job, actually moving into my job full time in a couple of days, and I couldn't take it anymore. And I just broke down crying, and I was so upset, and I was so stressed beyond belief. And I was looking at everybody else and like, wow, they're crushing it, and they're excited to be doing this work, and they don't seem to be having any challenges keeping up with everything. And like, boy, that must, like, what does that feel like? And then I realized that besides the job, I have two businesses that I am building, maintaining, and growing. So I understood already that I have a few extra things going on that they probably don't have going on. But I was still really struggling because even just in the consuming and the learning and the doing of the job, they seemed to be doing way better than I was. And on top of everything else, that was really hard on me. It was really, just feeding into that overwhelm and almost a fear. There was almost a fear beginning to grow of I'm not actually going to be doing a good job here. And so the last day before I moved into my role officially, I reached out to my lead and I just said, look, I'm really struggling here. Can we make a slight modification in my responsibilities for a few days so that I can adjust? Because I'm freaking out and I feel like I'm letting our customers down. I feel like I'm not doing a good job. And if I continue on this path, it's not going to be to my benefit, to the company's benefit, to our clients' benefit. I need to be able to pull back a little bit so I can put my feet on the ground. Because at this point, I just felt like I was sliding backwards so fast, so fast. Like it was beyond overwhelm. I couldn't the slightest thing, like I'd see the picture of a puppy and my brain would conjure up some kind of memory or thought or story, and I would be almost sobbing, and I'd be trying my best to hold that back and be like, okay, I can't do this right now. I have too much going on. I need to keep the focus. I need to just not let that go. So here's the thing, guys. When we're holding back our emotions, when we don't allow them to flow, it creates a massive backlog of just stress and crap in our lives. And I had spent the 6 weeks that we were training and mentoring and getting ready to move into our positions, really just essentially pushing everything down. I can't, this is not something that I can deal with right now. I need to stay focused. I need to maintain the motivation. I need to maintain the pace that I have at the work that I'm doing. I have design projects that are due. I have podcasts that need to come out. I need to, learn and do and grow within this new role that I've taken on. And so right now I can't deal with this. And what happens is that it's just going to build up. I mean, if you've ever done this, you'll know it's just going to build up. It doesn't go away. It just sits there and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And so I knew I've learned and grown to the point in my life now where I know there's a point at which I will break. And if I don't do something to address that, it's going to get ugly. And I don't like crying in front of anybody. And I definitely don't like, just randomly in the middle of the day, suddenly there I am sobbing. But that was what was beginning to happen. And so I knew I had seen the flags for weeks. I had seen it coming. I knew what I was doing was unhealthy in a way. And I also knew that I was prepared to hold the space for myself down the line, but in that moment, I needed to be focused on what was going on. I knew that it was not going to be something sustainable. A pace like what I had done for those 6 weeks was not sustainable, cannot be sustainable for most of us. And even if you can somehow push through and do it for months on end, it's very unhealthy for us, and it will lead you to a very unhappy, stress-filled life, which is not a life that I am choosing to live. So I came to the point of finally saying, look, I need to step back. I need to put my feet on the ground here a little bit. I knew full well that I was capable of doing this job. I knew full well that I was capable of balancing the full-time the hours of the job, the requirements of, being there and being present, fully present for that full amount of time, and also having my businesses. I knew that was possible for me. It wasn't a matter of thinking that I wasn't capable of doing it, but was a matter of coming to the realization like I need to slow down. So I took the 2 days. It took me about 2 days to step back, and my lead was so good to say, "Yeah, for sure, we'll work with that." And, I mean, obviously, ideally, they want you moving on to a full capacity as soon as possible, but I knew, and I held my ground in that I wasn't moving into a full capacity again until I felt ready. And the truth is, it only took about maybe 2 days for me to be able to move into that, and when I did move back into a full capacity in that position, it didn't feel scary. It didn't feel heavy. I didn't take on personally anything that came through on work. So if, a client was upset or something, that didn't hit me in the gut like it was hitting me the days before, because I had allowed myself to take a step back. And the other thing that I had allowed was a space finally to let the emotion flow. So literally the morning before, on the first day that I started full time, like full into my full responsibilities of position, my guy was gone skiing. It was just me by myself at home, and I sobbed for about an hour. And for the full 3 hours before I began work that day, I was on and off crying. And even in the moment that like I would just be so upset, I knew at that moment, like, I'm not quite sure why I'm crying right now. I'm not sure what specifically has triggered this emotion, but I knew that I had been burying things for weeks, and that this was just the clearing out of that. And so I would encourage you, first of all, if you're burying emotion, if you've been near to tears for a while, don't do that. And I understand pushing through, but make sure that you earmark some time, give yourself some time to be able to let that flow through. When we block emotions like that, that's when we cause a whole bunch of health problems, and we don't want to do that. So here's what I want to talk about today with regards to everything else that was going on. What I began to realize is that I had set this expectation of myself that this was going to be really easy, that everybody else, I could easily keep up with everybody else. I had set an expectation that everybody else was doing it way better than I was, that seemingly, from the non-interaction and the few moments that we'd sort of chat with our colleagues, that boy, they're really crushing it, and they don't have any fears, and they don't have any doubts, and they don't seem to be having any challenge balancing all of this, and they seem to be keeping up just fine. And why can't I do this? I had been setting this expectation that, first of all, somehow they're all doing it and it's fine, which was not the truth. If I were to check in personally with any one of my colleagues, I'm sure they'd say the same thing. They'd probably say, Amy, we were freaking out at, the first day or the second day, or when we're about to move into our positions full time, like, whatever it was. I'm sure every single one of us had that moment of, oh my gosh, what the hell are we doing? And everybody's doing it so much better and easier and faster than I am. So I set that misexpectation that everybody else seemed to be doing it better, but I also set up an expectation of myself that I was going to do it perfectly right from the start. This is the perfectionist that's in me, the whatever it is in me that says, I want to be recognized for being the best. Like, how cool would it be if the company saw me as, wow, like this person just right off the hop on the first day totally nailed it. And like we have such high hopes for this person. It's going to be so awesome. And I feel silly in a way sharing that with you because it seems so unrealistic, but that's the story that was going through my head. The story was that I was going to be this amazing, outstanding person that they were going to be like, wow, we're so glad that we hired this person, and it's going to turn everything around. And I can't do that. One person can't do that. And one person, especially maybe in the C level, maybe you can have an effect like that on a company, but even then, the effect that one person can have is mitigated because, it depends on the size of the company. If it was a team of 5, then perhaps, yeah. But if it's a team of hundreds or thousands, then one person is going to, not that they wouldn't have any effect, but their effect would not be, night and day necessarily. So I realized that I was setting myself up on these expectations and creating an expectation around myself that it was going to be the smoothest thing ever. And I know when I first applied for the role and when I interviewed for the role and when I got accepted for the role that I had said multiple times I could do this job in my sleep. Like it's just a matter of understanding, what it is that this particular company deals with and what their particular brand of clients require, but I could do this job in my sleep. And maybe I'll get to the point, but at what I hadn't allowed for myself because I had set this expectation that it was going to be so easy for me. I'm smart and I pick up things quickly and it's going to be fine and I'm totally great at dealing with tech. So if we had new programs to learn, that wasn't going to be an issue for me. But I had set this expectation without allowing myself room to grow, really, just assuming that it was going to come naturally, it was going to be super easy. And then I hadn't given myself space to grow into it. So, right from the start, I essentially set myself up for what was going to become very stressful the first few weeks. And so, it's no surprise that by the end of that 6 weeks, I was a basket case. And the other thing that was looped in at the same time was a challenge in my mind around the idea of having a job. So I'm going to share this with you. Wasn't sure. I was thinking I might do this in a separate podcast episode, but I'm going to share this with you now because I think it ties in quite well. I have run my own business for 5 years this month. In fact, I just passed my 5-year anniversary for my design business. I started Dare to Begin at the beginning of this year. So I've been doing that for about 11 months now. And in my mind, I have been an entrepreneur for years. Having a job was never in my plan. And I did some visual merchandising about a year or 2 years ago that was, okay, but I came up in so many restrictions in the job and finally ultimately left because I wasn't making any money, I was miserable. But I haven't really had a job since. And so for the most part, over the last 5 years, it's just been me. And so to now take on a job to me felt in a way like I had failed, like I was admitting defeat and I wasn't doing good enough. And so what was interesting to me was that my guy, who was so proud of me and I think just, grateful that, having a job meant that my income leveled out a little bit, which helped him as well because the business was doing okay, but it would have months where it did really well and then months where I'm like, holy shit, I really need to figure out how to bring in more business right away. And I mean, I've talked about before, the economy in the city that I'm in has been all over the place. So that has been challenging and of course stressful on me. So I think he was really excited to know that, besides the amazing benefits that come from working for a really good company, that there was going to be a regular paycheck, that there was something that we could consistently count on. And I think that he was really grateful to have that because he'd been the only consistent earner in our home for the last few years. So he would tell people about the fact that I had a job. And he would be like, oh, Amy got this job with, such and such company. And then he'd come back and say, oh, they say congratulations and they're really happy. And, I was very careful and still am about who I told that I have a job for two reasons. The first of which being sort of the reasoning away in my mind that, I have two active businesses ongoing, and one of my businesses includes several projects that are on the go. And I don't want my clients to think that I am not servicing them properly or that they're going to take a back seat because I now have a full-time requirement building something else or working somewhere else and that, suddenly their projects are not going to move forward. So I wanted to be careful of that. But what I wasn't really ready to admit to anybody was that I felt ashamed. I felt ashamed that I needed to go out and get a job to level out my income. I felt ashamed that, here I was building this business to teach others. Like Dare to Begin is all about teaching you how to build and launch your business. And yet I was struggling with it in a way. And that, I was looking to find a way to level the income while I grew the business. I was ashamed of needing to have a job. And it really sat on me, but it didn't come forward for a little while until, as fate would have it, my guy's brother called one evening. And a little backstory, the last time that so he lives in Toronto, the last time we had seen him, I had a few opportunities that were coming up, and one of them was I was about to do the first launch for Dare to Begin, the launch that I did in May. And I was super excited about it. And there was a few other things that were coming forward, some potential work opportunities to assist with other businesses and things. But what I was most excited about was this launch. And I remember that he left and, that we get along well. So this wasn't like any kind of backhanded anything, but he just said, I'm really excited for this potential opportunity to work with this person. And that opportunity was such a backseat to me compared to all the amazing things that I had been working and striving towards. And it felt to me like he didn't believe in what I was doing. And it wasn't that I needed him to. It wasn't that I needed him to be like, Amy, I think you've got this. You're going to be so amazing, because he doesn't know, right? He has no idea what's going to come through. But there was something about, not even acknowledging all these other things that I've been working on and just focusing on this one that seemed like the easiest way, which in truth never transpired. It never moved past that moment of like, okay, this could be a possibility. So then he called and my guy was speaking with him last week or a couple weeks ago. And, my guy said, hey, Amy got this job and she's full time, blah, blah, blah. I don't know. I wasn't there listening to the conversation, but he came out from the conversation and says, so-and-so says hi and congratulations on the new job. And with blinding clarity in that moment, I realized one of the big reasons that I had not been willing to acknowledge why I didn't want to tell people about this job. And I knew that I needed to actually talk to my guy about this, because I had asked so many times, please don't tell people, please don't make this public, please don't talk to everybody about the fact that I have a job. And I had said over and over and over again, I have clients that I'm actively doing projects with, and I want to make sure that I don't end up shooting myself in the foot by people finding out that I have a job, and then they pull back. All of a sudden, they're not willing to do work with me going further because they think that I don't have the time to put towards it. So please don't tell people. And no matter how many times I had asked that, he still was telling people. And I don't think that he thought it was a bad thing. And his thought process probably when it came with his brother was, well, he's in Toronto. Like, he doesn't know any of your clients, so it's going to be fine. But I realized in that moment that one of the biggest reasons why I was not ready for anybody else to really know about the fact that I had this job had nothing to do with the fact that, or very little to do with the fact that, I had these businesses that I wanted to protect, or that it wasn't that I was ashamed of this company. In fact, the company I work for, I think, is amazing. I'm really proud to work for them. I'm proud to move alongside with them. I think it's fantastic. I think it opens up some amazing opportunities for me. But I realized in that moment that I had shame around needing to have a job, that the acknowledgement of somebody else saying, wow, that's amazing, congratulations, while it seemed like a good thing, to me, it felt like they were acknowledging and celebrating the fact and happy that I'd finally come around to the realization that I had failed, that I couldn't make it as an entrepreneur, that I couldn't move forward, that I wasn't capable of creating a business that not only had consistent income, but had income to the point that, I could potentially allow my guy to be able to leave the job that he's not really super excited about. And then I could support both of us and do so with great abundance. Every time I would hear this, congratulations, that's so exciting, it felt like a shot to the heart. And it wasn't until that moment of clarity when he said, my brother says hi and congratulations on the job, that was the moment that I realized why it felt like a shot to the heart. I felt like they were saying, thank God that you finally realized that the businesses that you're building aren't going anywhere. Thanks for finally joining the real world and getting a job like all the rest of us. And that shook me a bit. It shook me a bit in the sense of like, whew, okay, I didn't realize that that's the way I thought. But it was also with such gratitude that I had that clarity, because now it meant, okay, I can actually go forward and address this now. And then I needed to find, like, how can I find the words to talk about this with my guy so that he understands it's not that I want him to hide information. I grew up in a family that we had to hide information so often, and it drove me crazy. I hated it. And so I never wanted to do that or put that on somebody else, but I also knew that I needed time to process through this. We couldn't just go out and like pull out an ad in the newspaper and tell everybody Amy has a job until I could process through this. And so I needed to find a way to be able to comfortably have that conversation with him and say, look, babe, please don't tell anybody, here's why. And it came right around that same culmination of the moment where I was so overwhelmed with everything going on, where I felt like I was drowning in this job, where I was looking at everybody else who seemed to be really crushing it. And all of these expectations I had put on myself suddenly came to a head. And I had a conversation with my guy, and I do my very best to be honest, but also to set some clarity and some boundaries at the beginning and say, this is I'm not angry with you. I'm not upset with you. This isn't a conversation against you, but I need to have this conversation. I need to share with you what I'm feeling. And so when I had this conversation with him, now again, at this point, it was right around that moment of just everything culminating together. And I'm often in tears, and God bless that man, because he has seen me cry so often, and he just knows now to let it be. Hand me some Kleenexes if it gets really, really messy. But I explained to him, it's not that I'm ashamed of the job. It's not that I'm ashamed of the company. They do some amazing things. There's been blessings just flowing through our lives because of them. But here's the deal. This is something that I'm still working on. This is something that I've just begun to realize that is a point of shame in me about myself. And it has brought forward a story that I've been telling myself that, I now need to work on. And so while I work on that, can you please do me the grace of not telling everybody? And if you feel like you want to have that conversation with people, then, I'm not going to stop you, but then please don't come to me afterwards and say, hey, so-and-so says congratulations on getting the new job. Because every time I hear that, I feel like it's a celebration of the fact that finally I've stepped back into line with everybody else. And I've realized that the only way for me to make consistent income is for me to have a job. So that wasn't an easy conversation, and we have worked on this in our relationship to be able to open up the conversation, to be able to have those moments of honesty without one or the other placing their own baggage on it. And it's a work in progress. We're not perfect by any means, but we have worked diligently at it over the years to move into that place of honesty and openness with one another. So I was listening today to a friend of mine sent me a Rachel Hollis. If you're not familiar with her, she just, I think her latest book was called Girl Wash Your Face. I cannot tell you what her business is about, but I know she's very successful at whatever her business is. And a friend of mine sent me her Facebook Live from this week and said, I think you'd really enjoy the message. So I sat down with it this morning, actually, before I was writing my notes for today's podcast. And I'm like, well, let's see what's in here. I wanted to sit in the sunshine with my cup of coffee. And so I thought, well, I'll listen in. So the interesting thing was, Rachel Hollis was talking about comparison, how we compare ourselves against someone else. And as I was listening to her, I'm like, Rachel, how is it possible that you knew this is what I was going to be needing to hear, right now? And what a beautiful gift that a friend of mine sent this to me. Like she sends me things every now and again, but she's never ever sent me anything like this. And so how amazing that I this morning decided I thought I'd listen to this, while I make my notes for my podcast. So she talks about comparing against someone else. And we can go on and on about comparing against someone else. That's not what we're here for. But what I wanted to bring that back to is this idea of these expectations that I have been setting on myself. I have been setting on myself this expectation based on what I perceived my colleagues to be doing. I had been telling myself the story that they were crushing it, that they were, taking all this new information in stride, that they were not in any way, shape, or form struggling, that they seemed to be just like totally nailing it from the start. And even though there were moments of, every now and again, somebody would be like, wow, this is really hard, or, oh my gosh, like I'm freaking out about moving into, when we move into our live role, like what that's going to look like. But still the story continued in my mind that most of the people that I was working with, that I was training with, that I was, getting ready to move into this role with, they were having no problem with this. And so that's a story that I had been telling myself. I had been comparing myself, my internal struggle, with what I perceived others were having. And I had done that many times in the past. All of us, I mean, we are human. We have done this. We have been taught to do this almost from the time that we begin to become aware of the world around us. Think about it this way. I know very little about like kids and the landmarks of when they're supposed to be doing certain things. So when a little one is starting to walk, I have no basis. Is that normal? Are they walking early? Are they walking late? How do we know they're walking early or walking late? Because we're comparing them to others. Before we can even talk, before we have any filters around what's happening in the world, we are being compared to others. And that is how we are taught. We are taught to compare ourselves against others to see how we measure up. So it's no wonder that then as adults, we continue doing this. And it's so normal for us, but it's incredibly detrimental for us when we look at someone else and we compare ourselves to what they are doing. So here's the thing. A couple years ago, I met these phenomenal designers. They were younger than I am, whatever, more beautiful than I am. All of my insecurities came up when I met them, but they were really beautiful people. They were really friendly. And so I started following them on Instagram. And I think I followed them for maybe 6 or 10 months. I don't remember exactly. But every time I would see a post, even though I knew these were, just amazing people, they seemed really heartfelt people, their story just seemed so easy to me. Like they just started this business and it just worked so naturally. They became partners and they met through their husbands or something. And, it's just like they just have amazing clients. And I'd see pictures of the projects that they were doing. And every time would be comparing the work that I did against the work that these two were doing and always coming up short. That, I wasn't doing projects with this budget. I wasn't doing projects with this kind of client. I wasn't, my photographs didn't look like that or whatever. Like I could come up with all kinds of things. And then came the day when they posted that they were going to be on one of the HGTV shows. I don't remember which one. And they hadn't been in business for 2 years yet. And it was like somebody threw a grenade at my feet. I was so taken out. I was like, how is that possible? I have been working on this for years. And how does it just come so easy to them? And I realized it took a little bit of time, but I realized this is an unhealthy follow for me. I'm not gaining any inspiration here. All I'm doing is every single time I see a post, it makes me feel bad about myself. It makes me feel like I'm not good enough. It brings into question everything that I do. And that's not healthy. It's not helping me. It's not helping my clients. It's not helping my business. It's not helping in any way, shape, or form, other than if I was looking for a way to feel bad about myself, that's the only thing it was helping. And so I finally gave myself permission to unfollow. When I did so, it wasn't because I was angry at them, wasn't because I was jealous of them, wasn't any of those things, but I realized that I needed to give myself grace and space to move out of that because that follow was not helping me. So I want to right now, I'm giving you permission to unfollow, unlike, unfriend, disconnect from anyone. I mean, anyone that you see on social media or that is in your life in some way that has you feeling less than. Here's the thing, and this is one of the things that Rachel actually talked about in the live that I haven't watched today as well, is this idea, because she went through the same thing. She did a call of her Instagram or the people that she was following on Instagram as well, and her focus was a little bit different, but essentially saying like, why am I following these people when it doesn't raise me up? And so I went through this. Facebook is notorious for this. I mean, there's lots of stuff coming out about this. The idea that, it's essentially just a platform for us to feel bad about ourselves, right? Everybody else has these, like, they call them the Instagram worthy pictures. And if you look at my Instagram pictures, you're probably like, well, Amy, you seem to live this idyllic life. Like you're building these businesses and you're always in the mountains. And yeah. And because I mean, the pictures of me just sitting here working, first of all, are kind of hard to take. And second of all, are really not that exciting. Like, maybe I should post one. I'll tell you what, I'm going to say it right now, make an agreement with you. I will take a picture in the next couple of weeks or ask my guy to take a picture of me so you can see me just sort of working away in my office. I won't even clean it up. It'll just be me working away. And I'll post it on Instagram for you guys so you can see what is just a normal day for me. You know, I'll just, whatever I look like, you'll see it. I don't know what's coming out, but pay attention. It'll come out. So we look at these pictures that are like these Instagram worthy, these, you know, we curate everything that goes on Facebook. We don't want to share everything. And so of course we're always going to share the highlights. But what it does, and this is not to feel bad, this is not to say don't share those things with your life. But if you're looking at someone else and that's all that you see and you think, wow, they're really crushing it, or wow, they're way ahead of me in life. I used to do this. I don't want to have kids. Neither my guy or I have any desire to have kids. We both came to this on our own. We love kids. We've had so many people say, why won't you have kids? You guys would be amazing parents. It's not what it's about. We just don't want to have them. But still, I would see people from high school or people from university that were having kids. They were getting married. They were buying houses. They were doing stuff that in a lot of ways, I really wasn't all that interested in doing, but yet I was feeling bad about myself because I wasn't doing all those things. I was looking at my life and going, wow, what can I talk about? Like, what have I accomplished? Right? Because whenever we compare ourselves against others, we're going to come up short. So I would encourage you, if there are people in your feed that are creating those emotions, you can unfollow them. Or if you don't want to unfollow them or you don't want to block them or whatever else because you're afraid of hurting their feelings, I know on Instagram you can mute them. I think on Facebook you could probably do something similar too. So that they, you know, you're not basically sending out a smoke signal saying, I don't want to see what you got going on right now. But it's also allowing you to give yourself some space and grace to get out of that and to not be continually bombarded by these things that aren't helping you. So it's one thing to look externally for some inspiration. I follow people like Amy Porterfield or Jasmine Starr or James Wedmore, Marie Forleo. And there are moments maybe where I look at them and go, wow, wouldn't that be amazing to have that? But I don't compare myself against them. I don't set expectations on myself based on what they're doing. I don't look at Marie Forleo, who, you know, just did a 2-month book tour and go, Amy, what the hell? Why haven't you done that already? Right? I look at that and go, holy smokes, she just did a 2-month book tour. Boy, what would that look like if I did that? And do I actually want to do that? I don't know. I'm not sure yet. It's a different way of following someone who's really successful in one area or multiple areas of their life and looking at it as inspiration versus looking at it as a way to just, you know, keep flogging yourself. So I want to wrap up today just with the thought of not just comparing ourselves, you know, when we need to let ourselves off the hook more often than we are doing right now. If we let ourselves off the hook all the time, probably we'd be amazing people. I don't know. But we may also then, you know, lose some of that motivation to keep moving. There are moments where it's good to be on the hook for certain things and be like, wow, okay, that person is really crushing it with their weight goals or really doing an amazing job with their business or really, you know, like I could learn a lot from how they build their relationship or build relationships in general, whatever it is. So there's those moments of being able to look at that and place a little hook in that and say, okay, that's where I want to go. So I'm just going to observe this person and use it as inspiration. But for everything else, anything that leaves you feeling crappy or down or whatever, let it go. You know, pull a moment from Frozen and say, that's it, I'm out of here. We're letting this go. This is not for me. Unfriend, unfollow, unlike. Let people in your life go who aren't building you up. It feels scary at first and it feels painful at first. And I've done that over my life. And there are people that I've had to take out for a period of time while I heal and grow. And it doesn't necessarily create a lot of understanding from others. But what it does do is it gives me space to work on myself. because that's mega important, guys, to be able to give myself some time to move through this, to figure out what's happening here, to deal with the baggage that I'm carrying. So, and there are people that you may just want to be like, I don't want anything to do with this person, period. Not at all. Not even a little bit. That's okay. Let them go. Let them go spend their energy and time with someone else who's better suited for them anyway. Right? It's not a thing about being selfish. Think about it this way. You have so much time and energy to spend. If you are requiring someone to maintain contact with you and spend their time and energy with you because even though you don't feel good around them, but you've made up some reason why you need to continue spending time and energy with this person, you're actually taking away their time and energy that they could be spending with someone else as well. So it's not a selfish thing to say, look, I need to just let you go. In a way, it's freeing for both of you. You're opening both of you up to be able to move into a fuller, healthier, more abundant life. And it doesn't mean that that person is gone for good. It just means that for right now, you guys aren't a good fit, right? Those are things to think about. And the last thing I want you to just remember is the expectations that you're setting on yourself. So we talked about, like I said, in episodes past about the expectations, and it's your job to manage the expectations for your clients. It's also, it's your job in a healthy and productive way for you to manage and acknowledge the expectations that you are setting on yourself. We are really good, most of us, and this is why I say we, most of us are really good at setting unrealistic expectations on ourselves and then beating ourselves up when we don't meet them. And we use that comparison game by looking at others, like I was doing with my colleagues, looking at others and thinking, boy, they're really crushing it. And I'm really fucking like just losing it right now. And, what kind of a horrible person am I? Or what kind of a sad or weak or whatever person, like come up with any negative descriptor you could. And those are probably some of the things that I was thinking that, they seem to be doing this just fine and I'm really struggling. And then, of course, I would feel like I needed to defend myself. I would feel like, people are like, boy, it's steep, but it's manageable. And then I would feel this need to defend myself by saying something like, well, yeah, but I have 2 businesses that I'm also growing. And I do. I mean, that's not an untruth. I'm not lying by saying that that's what's going on. But my meaning behind it, the basis of that statement, was not about anything that's like, okay, this is the truth of what's going on. It was a ploy for me to be able to say, look, I have all this stuff going on, so don't you judge me. Don't you look at me and think that I'm not doing good enough. Don't you take, this moment of the fact that I'm feeling really stressed right now and I can't seem to keep up as a failure on my part because you don't know all the stuff that I have going on. Right? That's where that sentence and that emotion behind that declaration was coming from. So that's what I have for you guys. Today feels a little bit heavy. It feels heavy for me too, but I wanted to share this with you because it's so important when we're building anything that we're aware of those things, that we're aware of what we're talking about in our own minds, that we're aware of the weight or the emotions that we're carrying into a situation. So, I mean, as you're building your business, wherever you are in your business, if there's anything in your mind that says something like you're not doing this fast enough, you're not building this big enough, look at everybody else, they seem to be doing it so much faster, better, easier than you. Those are expectations that you have set on yourself that require a little bit of a check. They require you to have a look at them and say, okay, what's this really about? Because, there's no reason to compare myself to someone else. Now, if you're really fucking the dog and you're not doing anything, then okay, maybe that's a fair point. Maybe that's your higher self sort of tapping you on the shoulder and saying like, hey, have you considered that perhaps if we spent a little less time on Netflix and a little more time focused on this, we might be able to move it forward, right? That's one thing. But if you're already putting in the time and you're now beating yourself up because you're not putting in 10, 12, 14, 16-hour days. You're looking at people who have the whole like hashtag hustle, who I hate. I hate the hustle bullshit lie. Nobody can sustain that. So if you're looking at that right now, you have my full permission to unfollow, unfriend, unlike, delete, get rid of anything that has that whole like hustle bullshit in it, because it's an unsustainable thing. You cannot keep going with a hustle mentality. It's unhealthy for you. It may grow your business or your goals, your dreams, whatever in the short term, but it is unsustainable in the long term and leads to an unhealthy life, an unhealthy physical being. It's not good. It's one thing to do it for a short time. Like I said, those 6 weeks, they were a grind. I had to continue, working myself up to be able to do it. But they were a grind, and I knew at the time it wasn't sustainable. I knew there was going to be a point at which my body and my mental health, my emotional health was going to send up the flag and say, that's Amy, that's it, Amy, we're out. And it happened, and I knew it was going to happen. And so I was aware of it. I was able to give myself space and grace to move through that. And that's a beautiful gift if you can do that. So that's it. I'm calling it here because I could talk about this. I think I'm starting to talk in circles. So I could talk about this for days because I feel super passionate about this, that we're amazing beings. We're amazing beings. I just finished watching A Wrinkle in Time yesterday. And there's a moment in the movie where Oprah's character is talking to the little girl who I think her name is Meg. I can't remember. And this little girl is maybe 10 or 12 and doesn't hates herself. Just doesn't like herself for whatever reason. Again, all the comparison against someone else. And Oprah's character has a moment with her and says, if you knew all of the things that had to transpire, that had to occur before, that had to come together in perfect harmony for you to exist exactly the way you are in this moment in time, you would never hate yourself. You would never wish that you were someone else, because you have been uniquely created. There has been so much that had to happen in perfect unison in order for you to exist exactly how you are. And I know, we can pass it off and say, well, I'm unique just like everybody else. Yeah, but every single person exists in that unique combination of whatever it is that you are, not by accident. It's not some random, happening that you are the person that you are with the way that you feel and the way you talk and the way you move and the things that you like and the things that are interesting to you and the things that you don't like. There's a reason that you've been created. There's a reason that the mix of personality and everything else that has come together that exists in you, that's not duplicated anywhere else. Even if you looked at identical twins, they are not the same person, right? They may be genetically the same, but that each human is not the same. So stop, comparing yourself against others who are their own creation, their own unique blend of traits and things, that they have their own specific purpose and reason to reach out to people. That's not you. And that's fantastic, because how boring would it be if we were all the same? It'd be really freaking boring, let me tell you. Think about how boring it would be if you ever I love to people watch. Not to people judge, just to people watch. I find humanity can be so interesting sometimes. Sometimes on a day that I'm feeling particularly salty, yeah, I fall into judgment, but I love to see how people move and talk and do things. And think about how boring it would be to go people watch when everybody was the same, right? That's boring. We don't want to do that. Nobody goes to a car show where all the cars are the same thing. How boring is that? We want to see all different kinds of makes and models and tweaks and adjustments and colors and whatever, right? Even if you're not into cars. You get it. We want to see some variety. Variety is the spice of life. Now I'm really just following into colloquialisms. So that's it, guys. But that's what I got for you today. All right. Stay tuned to my Instagram feed. I promise you that I will bring out that image. And I don't know when it's coming out, but it's coming out. I wish you a phenomenal day. Thank you so much for listening. Give yourself an extra big hug for tuning in today. And I wish you a phenomenal day. Bye for now. Are you tired of figuring it out all on your own? of sitting in overwhelm, knowing that you're not moving forward, but having no idea where or how to start? Are you ready to learn effective, profit-supporting strategies for your business so that you can finally earn the money you desire and step into the freedom that you're working so hard to create? If so, I invite you to join me inside the Launchpad. You'll get instant access to free training designed to meet you where you are right now and propel you forward toward the dream that you hold in your mind. It's time to make a powerful move toward your future. Time to step up and serve the people who desperately need your help. Let's not keep them waiting any longer. Today is the day. Join the Launchpad now. Just go to daretobegin.net/the Launchpad and sign up. Your success is inevitable. Now, let's launch it.